Hello friends! Hello friends! You can get this t-shirt, by the way, at our shop. Welcome to that 1870s homestead. My name's Rachel, and looky what showed up. I have lots and lots of onions. 2 more trays that are more loaded than this one. Today is onion planting day, and I have probably 450 onions to plant. So we're gonna get going on it. They're going in all of my raised beds. So, and anything extra, we're just gonna find space to plant them. So come along with me. I'll share some tips about growing onions with you guys and talk a little bit about staples gardening, why you might wanna consider it. Alrighty friends, so like I said, I'm gonna be planting in all my raised beds, but they're covered with all the deep leaf mulch from the winter. So I need to get that out of my way. So I'm just gonna pull it back in my raised beds. I've done this several times. We're doing carrots and onions. So I'm just making a space for the onions right now. Once I get this done, I'll bring you guys back down closer and we'll talk a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to just top dress the beds with some compost. This compost we just harvested from our chicken coop. Okay, so I got everything raked away, top dressed. Now I'll be spacing. These beds are 4 feet wide, 8 feet long. And so I'll be doing basically 3 sections. 16 inches of carrots, 16 inches of onions, 16 inches of carrots in all 6 beds. And so I have this nice handy dandy tool that Todd bought me. And it's exactly 16 inches. So I'm coming up to make my first row. And it helps me keep a nice straight line. And then taking from that and making my next row or last row. And then I'll go every 4 inches. So these are, the little dots are 1 inches apart. So you can just go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I need all the help I can get with straight lining in my garden because I stink at it. So that's what I'm going to be doing. We have our onions here. We're going to start with our whites, and we have a Walla Walla onion and Patterson. I've never grown the Walla Wallas before, but so I want to try them. That's just a 1 bunch I bought just as an experiment. And then the bulk are Patterson and some red Zeppelins. So this is going to take a very long time. I'll bring you guys through, show you a few tips, and we'll talk a couple tips about growing them. Now spacing, like I said, 4 inches apart, so I have similar dots in here. Let's just start with our Walla Wallas. So I grow from slips. I just got these yesterday in the mail from Dixondale Farms. They are a first-year started onion. So I'm going to take that little slip and just bury the roots. And then squeeze that soil around. And then we'll go 4 inches up. So 1, 2, 3. And same thing. Stick those roots down in there and pinch that soil around. Looks nice, yeah? Alrighty, so I'm gonna keep doing that. Now you can grow onions from sets or from slips. I've tried both ways. For whatever reason in my growing zone, I can only successfully grow onions from starts, I should say, not slips. And so I'm never going to chance. Onions is, like I said, a staple crop. So I grow a staples garden. I don't play with a lot of variety. I grow the basics that are, if I was cooking regularly, what are the primary vegetables I cook with? Do I feed my family? So that I make sure I preserve everything that we would typically buy from a grocery store or that meets our family's nutritional needs. And I don't do anything excess. 1, 2, 3. So for me, that's a lot of onions. We consume a ton of onions. A ton. And if I did not grow this many onions alone won't be enough. I'll probably still have to supplement. But I can't give my entire garden space to onions. So we grow as many as we possibly can, and that usually at least gets us through like May of the next year. Until growing season where we can get away with like spring onions or just green onions in the dishes that we grow and try to make do. Now, I'm gonna keep planting this bed and I'll come back and share some more tips as we keep going. This is gonna take quite a long time. Friends, I'm only gonna get this bed done today and I have 5 other beds to do. So stick around till the end and I'll show you what I'm gonna do with the rest of the onions just to keep them for the next day or so. But hopefully you guys can see the spacing. I thought of something in the commercial industry, like industrial farming. And if you're like buy a seed packet or something like that, it'll say that the average spacing is 18 inches. Even when you buy them from Dixondale, like I did, they'll tell you 18 inches apart. But with high intensity gardening methods, really amending your soil well, making sure you have good healthy soil, you can get away with this 4-inch spacing. I will feed them, like today they're getting just the compost. I'll water them in. I'll probably sprinkle in some all-purpose fertilizer. My BioLive, it's just a slow release, really gentle fertilizer. And then probably please come back. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. I'm pretty sure it's every 2 weeks. We will fertilize with diluted fish emulsion. You want to do some type of nitrogen fertilizer. Either, there's a commercial one. I think it starts with an O. I'll leave maybe a screenshot and leave a link to it. Dixondale sells it. It's a high ammonia concentrate. Ammonia-based anyway. And they just need a lot. They're a nitrogen-loving plant. Nitrogen while they're growing. Once the bulbs really start to produce, I'll cut back on the nitrogen and I'll start feeding them bone meal. And that's it. They need about 1 to 2, a good 2 inches of water per week. So their water, if you think about slicing into an onion and how juicy it is, right? They're really high water content vegetables, so they need a lot of water to grow. They hate weeds. They don't like competition at all, so stay up on your weeding. And they're great pest repellers throughout the garden. So planting them amongst your onions, and other things that might have tomato hornworms or other common pests that like to attack them. So I have a lot of babies, like teeny tiny babies. I'll show you one. Like really scrawny things. Itsy bitsy, almost like blades of grass. These won't grow a big onion for me. They'll be good for coming out here if I need green onions and chopping the tops, but they're great to use as pest repellents throughout the garden. So I'll save those for around the garden, here and there. Oh, I'm getting off on my lines. But some of these are just beauties. Good root development. Now, one of the things that I have a trouble with my onions is the birds. For some reason, I don't know if these things look like worms sticking out of the ground or whatever, but the birds love to come and pluck them out of the ground. So every day, probably twice a day, I'll come out here and look at them, plant back anything that the birds have plucked out, and that usually lasts for a couple weeks till they get a good hold with their roots. Or maybe the flavor gets too pungent and the birds understand, okay, that's not a worm. I'm not sure. But what else can I tell you about growing big onions? If you're just planting out, say you started them from seeds and you haven't given them their first haircut, give them their first haircut before you put them in the ground. Really chop that. You'll see how these are coming with like hardly any green tops. They've been cut way, way back. So go ahead and do that for your first haircut. And then if you have like really hard soil, not loose, something that's not going to easily give as the bulb grows, you may want to do what's known as spooning. And it's an old farmer's technique where you come out as the bulbs start growing and you pull that soil away from around the onion. And that just, again, because they don't like competition, they're kind of sissies, give them some space for their bulbs to easily form without fighting for it. But we did my daughter-in-law's garden beds yesterday, 2 raised beds. I just planted all my broccoli, cabbages, and I went back through and added the kale. And now this, I'm just not as young as I used to be. My bag doesn't hold up anymore, so we're gonna have to take a break. And plus it's Sunday, and I'll go in and rest with Todd and enjoy the rest of the day. I hope you guys are having a wonderful time growing food where you are, gardening. It's just an absolutely killer day. I love it. And I love growing food again. It's really, really, really exciting. If you're new here, I took last year off. I took a break from gardening, and I needed it, and the soil needed it, and my family needed it. So I'm excited to be back. So this is, stay tuned because I will show you what I'm gonna do with the rest of those onion starts. Just say hang on, I'll be right back, and let them just get adjusted to being outside. And I'm gonna get the rest of these. We're on to our Pattersons though. So I'm now, half of the bed was the Walla Wallas. We are now planting the Pattersons, and the majority will be Pattersons. I'll probably have like 3.5 beds to Pattersons and 2 red onions. Okay, so I'm just taking these reds in a big cluster, and I had a little haphazardly, but I had a T-post right here, so there's already a nice hole. I'm just gonna shove them in that hole and stick them all in there, and hopefully they'll do okay. Get watered and get used to being outside, and then I'll pull them and plant them when I have time. All right, bye guys. All I'm gonna do is water those onions in gently. So I'll probably just like lay the hose down the center of the aisle and drag it up between the onions, and but I'll give them a good watering. So yeah, happy growing, happy gardening where you guys are. I'll see you on the next video.